I have a friend whose family is disintegrating. Her cousin's cherished belief is that God created the earth about 6,000 years ago, creating humans separately and specially from all else, and that the only true source of wisdom is the Bible. Another cousin's cherished belief is that the material world is the only reality, and science and reason are the only path to understanding anything. Here's the part that bothers me. It's the science-oriented cousin who's the one who starts the flame wars with sarcastic and demeaning put-downs. Each side rallies its factions and the whole family suffers. And I learned about my friend's challenge or predicament when, in the hope of offering a middle ground, she shared one of my videos with her family on Facebook, a video in which fairly early on I used the word creation to describe the universe. Well, her science-minded cousin stopped the video right there, commenting, "Well, it's not hard to see where this guy's coming from." You know, his dogma prevented him from recognizing a colleague and a potential friend. He already knows the answer to the Zen koan of this existence. So the contemplative practice of open-hearted listening is a waste of his time. Zen koans, you know, like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Have you heard this before? Well, science has koans too, as we'll see. But my friend's family experience echoes all over our cultural landscape. I'm sure you've seen the awful comments on YouTube and formerly known as Twitter. Anywhere anonymous comments are allowed. And it's kind of like watching a fist fight or a street fight. You know, I'm disappointed and kind of disgusted by both sides, but I struggle to look away. Neither side appears to be tolerant of attempts at offering common ground. I've tried. And that culture war pushes us to view spirituality and science, religion and science, as opposite ends of a spectrum. And both extremes on this spectrum come from a place of presumed certainty. They are so certain that they're correct that they can't even hear the other side. So certain that they are right, and their opponent's wrong, of course, that they can't see how this very certainty makes them conjoined twins. And that self-righteous certainty is all about the nature of a reality that is filled almost completely with mystery. Physicist Marcelo Glaser uses the analogy of an island of knowledge surrounded by a sea of mystery. Every time we discover something new or explain something unexplained, the island's shoreline increases. The island gets bigger. And that means we are exposed to even more mystery than before. Each generation can ask more, deeper, better questions than their predecessors. So scientific advances increase our exposure to the mysterious. The history of science suggests that the sea of mystery is infinite. If it is infinite, that means there will never be an end to the scientific endeavor, never be a theory of everything. It means there may be or are levels to reality that we can never access. And out there, out beyond the beyond of what we can imagine imagining, is what Reverend Michael Dowd called ultimate reality, or for those who prefer traditional language, God. Now, the cultural conversation about science and religion happens here on the beach. If your faith is that God is in the shallows just offshore, then when our knowledge of reality grows so that what was shallows is now firmly part of the dry land of the island, your faith will end up being in direct conflict with plain evidence. This is often called the God of the gaps approach, because you assign the gaps in our knowledge to actions of a god or gods. When those gaps are closed, your gods disappear, if that's your approach. And among others, I'm talking to the intelligent design folks here. Not that far from here, in Dover, Pennsylvania, was the landmark Kitzmiller versus Dover case, in which intelligent design proponents got humiliated because their whole argument rested on proving that some biological systems are irreducibly complex. They tried to show that systems like the human eyeball are useless if they're only partly formed, and that there is no possible pathway by which you can build an eyeball using slow evolutionary improvements. And they got humiliated because for every so-called missing link that they said God had to have supplied, the biologists offered detailed findings showing both well-documented partial eyeballs from the fossil record and well-known biochemical pathways that could easily have done exactly what the ID proponents said was impossible. And it wasn't just eyeballs, it was system after system from every branch of biology. Again, if your faith is that God is needed to explain mysteries that we know about, mysteries that lie close off the shores of the island of knowledge, then your God will consistently shrink as the island of knowledge expands. On the other hand, if your faith is that there is no deep water and that we're just one theory, one Einstein away from understanding everything, then you may well be similarly humiliated as were the scientists of the late 19th century. Lord Kelvin, who formulated the first two laws of thermodynamics, who found the value of absolute zero, and whom the Kelvin temperature scale is named after, chair of the Royal Society, and a smart guy by all accounts. He famously said in 1900, quote, "There is nothing new to be discovered in physics now. All that remains is more and more precise measurement," end quote. Well, Wilhelm Röntgen had discovered X-rays 5 years earlier, but Lord Kelvin, the preeminent figure in physics, had dismissed them as a hoax. Then came the Curies and Einstein and all of modern quantum-informed physics. Scientists welcome anomalous data, hopefully, usually, when they're at their best. They welcome it because it represents new frontiers. Most thoughtful theologians also embrace the scientific consensus because it represents the expanding glory of creation. Welcoming the unknown is challenging for most of us because it means saying, I don't know about a whole lot of stuff. It means not jumping to conclusions when you don't have sufficient evidence. It means embracing mystery. More on that in a minute, but first I want to say a few things about this island of knowledge that we've constructed over the last 500 or more years. And I do this so you can see what I mean by mystery and how even the things we're fairly certain about can also be profoundly mysterious. There's a lot we don't know. But what we do know now is so astonishing, so spiritually fulfilling, for me at least, that it's easy to miss, especially if you have a Newtonian view of the universe as a machine. I come from a New Age family. I think I've mentioned that here before. And one of the givens in my family is a belief in reincarnation, disembodied souls, karma, all that stuff. And a few years ago, my brother's new partner, who I had just met, asked me if I believed in reincarnation because it was a new idea to her, and she knew that she and I share a love of science. I hesitated, and then I said, it depends on what you mean by reincarnation. Well, that got my brother's attention. He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? When you die, your soul leaves your body and then takes on a new body. What else could she mean? I said, well, I don't know about souls. But what I do know is that when we die, even before we die, the atoms that make up our bodies came from being other bodies, even things like thunderstorms and comets. And now that matter flows through me. It lives as me for a day or a decade, and then it moves on to become other things, including other people, flowers, and seashells. Similarly, I know that the cultural memes that make up my thoughts and actions also flow through me. They animate me for a while and then move on to become the cultural memes of others. influencing entire societies, sooner or later, perhaps all of humanity. I know that every particle in my body is gravitationally connected to every other particle in the universe. So every moment, every movement, even every breath changes the shape of all space-time, and that those ripples reverberate out forever. I said, I don't know about reincarnation, but I know that I have a permanent, substantial impact on the entire universe. And I'm in perfect, permanent unity with this amazing, fully connected, unified reality, both before and after my death. Some of the matter that is me today was once part of every creature and person who ever lived. And those atoms will go on to find new life in every living thing that ever comes after me in the future. Some of these atoms right here will someday travel to other stars, will eventually be other stars. A droplet of ocean spray is the ocean, and vice versa. So, given all that, a ghostly soul that moves from body to body, to me personally, it seems kind of second rate. Do I have a soul? Maybe, but my spirituality doesn't depend on it. I'm already part of a universe-sized cosmic unfolding so grand as to make the question of separate souls seem almost irrelevant. Actually, I wish I'd said all that to her. What I actually said at the time was a lot more meandering and didn't come out quite so nicely and concise. But you guys get the edited version. There are two things that science does not do: eliminate mystery and ruin spirituality. Where is spirituality on this island analogy? We talk about spirituality as though it's synonymous with the supernatural. But if you Google spiritual principles, you get this list. The underlying theme here when I read this list is not supernatural, it's transformation. Spirituality is about becoming. So is evolution. My point is that the island of knowledge is deeply spiritual if you look at it through deep time eyes, from a perspective that embraces nearly 14 billion years of becoming. We know, for example, through reason and experiment, that there's only one family on this planet and that we are cousins with every living thing. We know that our bodies aren't separate living things, but entire ecosystems of living things. We know that these bodies of ours are made from dust that was created in dying stars. We know that when we look closely enough, even those atoms dissolve into a dance of pure energy, energy that was present there at the dawn of time. We know that fundamental forces unite the entire universe into one interconnected whole, one single thing. For me, these are spiritual ideas as powerful as any other holy scripture, because they offer to transform us profoundly. They invoke in us spiritual responses like awe, humility, contemplation, connection, tolerance, and unity. And they embed us deeply into this real life story of a universe that unfolds, a universe that becomes. As we celebrate that, some of you may perceive a divine intelligence behind all of that power and glory and awe, while others might see no purpose or intelligence behind it whatsoever. Great, that's fine. But if the two of you start to argue about that, you're going to ruin the awe and the wonder, the spirituality of the moment for all three of us. Science doesn't ruin spirituality. For me, it enhances it, providing vast new fields for inspiration. What ruins spirituality is arguing from a false certainty about things that are inherently mysterious. In the last century, the island of knowledge has expanded so fast that we haven't really been able to integrate that new knowledge into our worldviews. We still too often perceive a duality as though science and spirituality are mutually hostile or at best separate realms. The same with reason and faith, certainty and mystery, nature and God. And though I struggle to live in it myself, the emerging worldview is that these seemingly conflicting things are all faces of a unified, mysterious reality. Reality with a capital R. For a growing number of people, a reality that's synonymous with God and vice versa. God synonymous with reality. If humanity is to survive its adolescence, we're going to have to learn to be okay with not knowing some really important things. We're going to have to learn to accept ambiguity as an essential ingredient of our reality. I'm learning to enjoy saying, I don't know, especially about some of the biggest questions, like, what is the nature of consciousness? I don't know. Does the universe have a purpose? I don't know. What came before the Big Bang? I don't know. Are there other realms or dimensions or universes that can intervene in this one? I don't know. These questions are like Zen koans. In Zen practice, koans are an invitation to contemplation and a guide towards living comfortably inside mystery. Science offers koans too, and we can employ them just like their Zen cousins. Why are there no magnetic monopoles? What is division by zero, or the square root of -1? And what are we to make of infinity as a concept? What lies inside a black hole, given that the inside of a black hole is outside of our space-time? What happened before the beginning of time? What is time? What is the nature of conscious minds reasoning about the nature of consciousness? Mystery can be frightening. The island analogy is apt because oceans are kind of scary. You know, there's a reason sailors have always been regarded as highly courageous. They were literally heading off into the dangerous unknown. Many years ago, I went hiking with some friends, and our route took us past an old quarry filled with water. There it is, thanks to Google Maps. We knew that local people swam in that quarry sometimes, and we also knew from them that the water was safe to swim in, but we had also heard that no one knew how deep it was, just that it was very deep, possibly bottomless due to caves in the area. So we stood there on the banks of that quarry in the bright sunshine on a hot summer day, perfect for swimming, and we looked at that water. And we looked at that water, and I have to admit that after we finally peer pressured each other to jump in, I was still terribly aware of the unknown depth beneath me. Something in me kept screaming, "Get out, get out." Of course, we did get out after a while, and all was well. But if someone had come along and said, "Oh, that's just a local legend. The quarry is exactly 20 feet deep at the deepest," well, we might have stayed all afternoon. Not knowing can be pretty uncomfortable. So embracing mystery means relaxing into some really big unknowns, from reincarnation to dark matter to God, without succumbing to our instinct to leap to conclusions. Embracing mystery means remaining in astonishment that anything exists at all. Nobel physicist Richard Feynman said, quote, "I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. I don't feel frightened not knowing things by being lost in a mysterious universe. It doesn't frighten me, end quote. Now, it's not my intent this morning to chastise theists or anti-theists here, except maybe for the tone some of them use. Most of their arguing revolves around the changing nature of God as a concept, because God evolves too, or at least our conceptions of God do. So does our notion of the supernatural. 150 years ago, the idea of uranium losing mass and becoming lead would have been regarded as absurd pseudoscience by the physicists of that time, a violation of well-established, well-known physical laws like the conservation of mass. Scientists would have derided that idea as alchemy or a hoax. That was before Roentgen and the Curies opened up that entire field of nuclear physics. And what had been supernatural as a concept or impossible became natural. The island of knowledge got a lot bigger, and nature got a lot more interesting. I'm also not defending pseudoscience here, although I think that label is often too eagerly applied. I'm saying that the definitions of natural and supernatural have shifted throughout the history of science. Hard and fast physical laws, like conservation of mass, become less rigid and more inclusive as nature's quirks and exceptions are revealed to us. For example, cosmologists today are quite open to the concept of multiple universes and extra dimensions, including universes that could be right here among us, but offset in some direction, some dimension that we can't experience or access. Well, to me, that sounds strangely similar to traditional religious ideas about supernatural realms, right? Unitarian Universalists are uniquely positioned, I think, to make a respectful case for science as both a source of revelation and a common ground for spiritual celebration. There's no reason we can't celebrate the amazingness of the island and explore the deep mysteries of the ocean, hand in hand with believers and non-believers from every tradition, humble in our conjectures and accepting that mystery engenders many possibilities. Our premature certainties and dogmas are just irrelevant when considered from here, or from here, or from here. If you are a religious believer, please don't let science discoveries here interfere in your relationship with God, way out at the edges. I also humbly suggest that you consider saying, "I don't know," as often as you can honestly do so. And please refrain from kicking sand here on the beach. If you're an atheist or an anti-theist, please don't let our successes on the island of knowledge limit your worldview to what's near the shore. I also humbly suggest that you consider saying, "I don't know," as often as you honestly can. And please refrain from kicking sand here on the beach. If you're someone who already wrestles earnestly with these questions, keep wrestling. They are koans of science and may lead you to spiritual depths you hadn't known. And I encourage you to proclaim, "I don't know," with a big smile. As Shakespeare reminds us, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And as you enjoy this beach with others, remember that awe and wonder may be found in every direction. May it be so.